Welcome to Living Life in the End for the Successful and Fulfilled Woman. I am your host, Dr. Stephanie D. Barnes, the Liberated Lawyer. I help women to get everything they desire in life by equipping them with powerful strategies to achieve the fulfillment they desire and deserve. Who said you can't have it all? Clearly, they did not know about living life in the end. When women make powerful decisions and create great strategies, they can have everything they desire in life. Girlfriend, forget about choosing between being successful or fulfilled. You can be successful and fulfilled. It's time. It's time for you to get everything you desire and deserve. It's time for you to live your life on purpose. It's time for you to live a life that is fulfilled, meaningful, and full of joy. It's time for you to walk boldly in the power of your decisions. If you are going to be in this world, you need to be fulfilled in this life. Life is too long to be unfulfilled. Join me for another episode of Living Life in the End, where you learn how to live fulfilled, fit, and free. Hey, it's time for a musing from the mind of Dr. SDB, where I share poignant thoughts that help you live your life in the end. Girl, I've got something on my mind. Y'all, I have been so excited about sharing this goodness with you. This is not something that I could keep to myself. Now, I've talked about surrender before. I've done speeches on surrender. I've written about surrender. But up until now, I really think, honestly, I was just kind of dabbling in the power of surrender. But I have really begun to fully embrace surrender. Now, let me just tell you, I have always been a planner. I am indeed a master strategist. That is one of my superpowers. I have excelled in strategy both personally and professionally. My mind is always deciphering the matrix, as I like to call it. And I'm always thinking about how I see life professionally and personally in terms of strategy. But I have found that sometimes my commitment to strategy kind of actually works against me, because the point of a strategy is to get the execution. You plan to do A and A happens. You plan to do A in steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, boom, A happens. Well, of course, we know life does not go that way. And even though I know that life doesn't always go the way you plan it, that it goes exactly as it should, I still, for some time, have gotten discombobulated, frustrated, and every kind of aided there is when things don't happen the way I planned them. And I have been earnestly looking to becoming better at responding to resistance, because resistance happens in so many forms. And I truly believe that when you are doing something great, you're always going to experience resistance. I mean, that's just physics, that's energy. When you are pushing against and pushing through, there's friction. Resistance is a part of life. I know that. I know that. And yet, when resistance happens, I get all bent out of shape any damn way. So I have really been looking at ways to truly be my own personal calm in the midst of any storm, whether it is a big storm, small storm, thunder shower, whatever. I need to be calm. And a couple of weeks ago now, I guess, yeah, well, actually a month ago now, I was returning from a conference in Las Vegas on that fateful Friday of the damn crowd strike update fiasco that shut down the whole world. And I ended up being stuck at the airport for 10 hours. Now, my little 10 hours was a drop in the bucket compared to some people who were just completely stranded for days. And I'm grateful that all I was delayed by was 10 hours. But nonetheless, that 10 hours was a little stressful. And, you know, my travel home honestly just didn't go the way I planned it, but it went exactly the way it should. This was something that was completely beyond my control. I got up on time. I went to the gym. I got dressed, and I was dressed and closed my luggage up and just the right time. And I was getting ready to go down and grab some coffee before going to the ride shed area. Then I got this text talking about my flight had been delayed for 2 hours. I'm like, okay, what's the delay? Okay, 2 hours. That's not so bad. And I also learned that it was this global IT outage that was wreaking havoc on flights around the world. And I'm like, okay, well, it says all of them will be delayed by 2 hours. And so I really wanted to get home. I just really wanted to get home because I had been gone for a week and I wanted to get home. I didn't want to get home 2 hours later. I didn't want to get home the next day. I wanted to get home when I was supposed to get home, but that wasn't going to happen. And so I paused for a moment and I just decided, okay, you know what? I'm going to do a little meditation and prayer. And I found a little meditation that was on reducing um, worry and anxiety. I prayed and I just adjusted my mindset. And I said to myself, I am going to set the intention that regardless of how today goes, I'm not going to get flustered. I also set the intention that I will get home. I don't know when, but I will get home. And I have to trust that and believe that. And, as it turned out, my flight got delayed 3 more times. And fortunately, when I got to the airport, I was able to go to the Centurion Lounge and I waited in comfort. I had food to eat, I had coffee, I had a comfortable place. And I sat there and did all of my post conference follow up. And this was the most efficient I've ever been with post conference follow up. So I sat there and did that, went through all my emails and prepared myself for the work week. So it was useful time. And I got up to go to my gate. And I got there and realized that my flight, in between getting up from the place where I was sitting, going to the restroom, transition to go out, my flight had been delayed a whole hour. So I could have sat in the lounge maybe another hour. But anyway, I ended up being at the gate. One of the things I realized about now being in the gate with the masses is just to recognize how fortunate I was to be comfortable and to use that as a positive. Well, I got work done, everything's okay. And so now I'm sitting in the boarding area and I've got to pass the time because instead of sitting there for just maybe 40 minutes before I board, I'm going to be there for another 2 hours because my flight's been delayed an hour and then, the whole boarding thing. And so I decided to listen to a book on Audible, and I had previously downloaded The Magic of Surrender by Kurt Blackson. And I'm like, whew, how appropriate is this? Because I was trying, y'all, Lord, I was trying to stay calm. And I have a very naturally, I don't know if it's natural, but anyway, I have an explosive personality. And it is real easy for me to go from 0 to 100 and just be all bent out of shape. And I'm like, I'm not doing that today. I'm not. I deserve better. This day deserves better. And it's not going to change anything. So it's nothing I could do to get home faster. And I'm grateful that I had a very poignant reminder, literally in my ear, about the magic of surrender. 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 And a lot of times when we think about surrender, we think of that being a weakness, because you may think of the surrender that happens in war when one side gives up and lays down their weapons and surrenders to the other side. Yeah, you can kind of look at that as a defeat. All right. But the surrender that I'm talking about really is not born in defeat at all. It is born from the power of trusting that everything will be okay. Everything will be okay. And I had to trust that I would get home exactly when I should. I may not get home exactly when I desire, but I trusted I will get home. I will get home. And I even got a little hype because I was on flight 777. I'm like, look at that. I'm lucky. It's going to happen. And I just sat there calmly and listened to my book and waited until the instruction came for us to board. And I sat there calmly and watched planes come in and recognizing that our plane was coming from Atlanta. It was going to be one of those turnarounds. So we were waiting on our plane to come in from Atlanta, which is, I think, really where everything was just completely screwed up. Because the flight before me, actually, no, the flight after me. So my original flight, I think, was for 10:49. The 12:30 flight actually left before my flight did because that plane was coming from somewhere else. But anyway, I sat there calmly. And normally, y'all, I would have been cussing, fussing, just all bent out of shape. And I just trusted I will get home. I surrendered to the moment. I prayed about it and let it go and realized that I had done everything that was within my control and everything else was going to happen as it should. And so we left 10 hours after we were originally scheduled. And y'all, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie. I almost lost it because y'all, we got on that plane and I thought we were getting ready to take off. And they told us we had to get off the plane because the plane was too hot. Because it was like literally 107 degrees in Las Vegas. And the plane had flown from Atlanta, sat there in that hot heat and overheated. Something happened. And it was hot on that plane, but they told us to deplane. And I had been super calm up until that point. I ain't gonna lie, y'all. I started crying. It was a quiet, soft cry. I had to call my mama. And I told my mom, I'm like, I'm stuck here. I don't know when I'm gonna get home. I know everything's gonna be okay, but I just need to cry to you right now. I just need to let it out. And that's something that we have to embrace, is that surrender doesn't mean stoicism. It doesn't mean that you don't feel what you feel. It doesn't mean that you don't feel anxiety, you don't feel sadness, you don't feel disappointment. You recognize that, embrace that feeling, sit in it, cry if you need to, whatever. But crying was just my release. And the surrender was, instead of getting upset and fussing at the other people, asking all these questions, I walked to the restroom and I did breathing exercises. And I breathed in and I breathed out. And took my mind off the fact that we were not leaving. It took my mind off the fact that I didn't know when we were going to leave, because I started looking up flights, and the next flight that I could get out was like on Sunday. So that means instead of getting home Friday, I was going to get home on Monday morning. And I said, well, I'm just going to go to the restroom. I'm going to breathe. And and I just knew something was going to happen. And true enough, when I came back from the restroom, and I'm sure people were wondering, why is she breathing like that? But when I got back, they made an announcement. The flight is not canceled, everybody. It's just delayed. Please don't leave the boarding area. So guess what your girl did? Set her ass right down and started listening to that book again. And I listened to his story, and I listened to what he was telling me, and I lived it in real life. And it just showed me that there is true magic in surrender. And, I don't know what you're experiencing. I don't know what disappointment you may be facing. I don't know what disruption you may be facing, what fear you're staring straight in the face. You know, maybe it's your relationship, maybe it's your career, the car breaks down, you may have missed your flight. Disruptions happen on all ends of the spectrum and can derail our plans. I just know, like, for me, I've had a lot of stuff, a lot of disruptions that seem to be concentrated. So, and I took a moment actually as an effort to really process all of this, because I was starting to feel some type of way, like, God, what we doing here? You trying to tell me something? My son was in a near fatal accident in March, and God blessed him and his passenger to live. My son walked away, and his passenger, who experienced some critical injuries, is alive and recovering. My father had a health issue. He had cancer, and he's had surgery, and that's been removed. Then a tree fell on my house. Y'all, a tree fell on my house. Then the back of my car flooded. I had a health scare myself. All these things were happening. And because I have committed, the air missing the airplane was, or the whole CrowdStrike fiasco was just a culmination of all these things. That's when I really started to thinking, like, what's going on, Lord? But in each of those moments, once I committed to the power and the magic of surrender, I was able to deal with each of those in a much more calm and effective and peaceful way. When the tree fell on my house, y'all, I was like, now this is some straight bullshit here. Because I was getting ready to go out of town and enjoy myself. I've not really had a vacation this year for a number of reasons. And I was going out of town on a little brief vacation. Literally 2 hours before I was supposed to leave, the goddamn tree fell on my house. And it took off all of the electric wiring on the side of my house. So I didn't have any power. So I sat in a house with no power for 2 days. I could have gone to a friend's house or could have gone to the hotel, but I have 3 dogs, and you can't take 3 dogs, especially two Doberman, to nobody's house and nobody's hotel. So me and the dogs, we just roughed it out. And it wasn't that bad. But there was a moment where I began to realize what was going on, that I didn't have power. This was on the day before Juneteenth. So the next day was a holiday, a federal holiday. So I'm like, how am I going to get things done? And I just sat there and, you know, felt my feelings, cried, had my little blowout, ugly cry and everything, got that over with. And then I began to think about solutions, turned on my strategy hat. These are the options that are before me. This is the best case scenario. This is the worst case scenario. If the worst case scenario happens, this is what I'm going to do. Everything's going to be okay. And in recognizing that, surrendering to the reality, this is this is messed up. This is not how I planned for things to go. But surrendering to the reality, and more importantly, trusting that even in the worst case scenario, it was going to be okay, allowed me to get through that 2 days without power in peace. It wasn't pleasant, but I was at peace. And when I finally got an electrician who came out, I got my wiring reattached, put up the new stuff. It took forever for Georgia Power to come because, it was 50 million people ahead of me. And I think it was about 10 o'clock and they still hadn't showed up. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to bed. And either I'm going to wake up with power in the morning or sometime tomorrow morning, sometime tomorrow I'll have power. And I did. I just went and got in the bed and I took a shower because I did have water. My water did work. It was cold, but I took a shower. I just got to bed and went to sleep. And true enough, around 11:30, I could hear them outside working because they was making all kind of racket. I just turned right on back over and went back to sleep. And about 2 o'clock, I woke up again, all the lights on in my house because, of course, I hadn't turned anything off. But my point is this: when we surrender to the reality of what we're facing, we can find peace. And it's important to truly embrace the magic. It is magic because it transforms your life, your perspective, and it really transforms the situation. So if you are experiencing a disruption, I want you to take these things into consideration as you embark upon the journey of embracing the magic of surrender. Number one, acknowledge your feelings. You pissed off, you mad, you sad, you afraid, whatever it is. Acknowledge that. Stand in that, cry. Don't bury your feelings. That comes back to explode on you later. So acknowledge your feelings, whatever it is you're feeling about the situation, the person, the whatever. Number two, look the disruption dead nigh and make peace with it. Because you can't change it. You can't change the fact that the disruption has happened. It has happened. The tree has fallen on your house. The back of your car is flooded. Your flight has been delayed for 10 hours. There's nothing you can do to change that. So look that disruption dead nigh and make peace with it. Number three, become even more peaceful by becoming the calm in the center of your storm. I do it with prayer, meditation, and breathing. Y'all, there's some power in prayer. There's some power in meditation and a stilling of your mind and spirit. And breathing is such a beautiful way to regulate your body and your mind so that you can be calm. Number four, this is something that I have found helpful, and that is to really think through all your options, weigh the consequences, understand the worst case scenario. If you can survive the worst case scenario, anything else that happens below that, you're going to be fine. And you can kind of think, well, isn't that kind of a morbid way to look at it? No, it's not. No, it's not. It's a startling way to force yourself into the realization that I'm gonna be okay. Because this is the worst case scenario. Because the worst case scenario usually is not what's gonna happen. And when you can tell yourself, well, you know what, this is the worst case scenario and I'm going to survive that, then when the best case scenario happens, you're like super happy. So this is all about melding reality with fear because you fear the worst is going to happen. And when you look realistically at all that possibly could happen and you figure out your plan and strategy for each of those, you are able to quell that fear and focus on solutions. And the fifth thing is to trust. Trust that everything will work out as it should. Period. It may not look anything like you planned it. It may not be anything that you imagine, but it's going to work out the way it should. And when you surrender that, you are able to experience life in a way that allows you to remain in control of what you can control. And another real life example, and I'll just close out with this. On the way back from visiting my son last weekend, y'all, I had a flat tire on I-20. And looking back on it, I'm honestly grateful because God was up in that car with me because I probably should have had a blowout because I didn't realize that not one, but both of my rear tires, y'all, were bald. And I'm usually really good about car maintenance. I get my car checked out, I get my tires rotated, I do all the things, get my oil changed. But I don't know, I don't drive my car as much anymore because I work from home. So I'm not as in tuned with my car as I have been in the past. And honestly, I let my tires get in really bad shape. And I was wondering why this is funny now, it's really not funny. I was like, why is my car shaking so much? Y'all, it was shaking so much, it was popping the passenger door open. Now that should have told me something, number one, because on the way there, my passenger door popped open, not all the way open, but popped a loose like 4 times. I had to pull over 4 times to close my door shut. Now that should have told my monkey ass something right there. Okay. But I was thinking, oh my gosh, I need an alignment because I had just gotten 2 new front tires. And so I just thought, oh, I need to get an alignment. My car is misaligned. I wasn't thinking about them back tires. Y'all, them back tires was so bald. Uh, it was like, it was shameful. It was shameful. I'm embarrassed that I allowed my tires to be like that. But my point is this, I'm getting to a point. Because I have been practicing surrender, and because I have been practicing the discipline of remaining calm in a storm, I was able to have that situation work out the best way that it could have. When my tire was about to blow, I was about to have a blowout. But when it got to the point where this tire was like, look, you won't stop, I'm finna stop you. I've been shaking. I didn't open your car door because it happened on the way back. Car door opened up 3 times. And I had the moment of presence, not to the presence of mind, rather, not to panic. I held my steering wheel firmly and was able to guide my car over to the side. And fortunately, I had before that said, you know what, at the next exit, I'm going to get off and see what's going on. And so I had gotten in the far right lane. So fortunately, I didn't have to cross any lanes and I could safely slow down and get to the side. I also was able to keep the presence of mind to be able to call roadside assistance. And once I figured out where I was, to figure out the next town closest to me and to figure out where a tire place was open on a Sunday. Like I say, God had his hand all in this. I believe that. I stand on business on that because the tire gave out like a mile and a half before the next exit to a town that had a tire store open. So once roadside assistance came and changed out my tire, I was able to safely go to the next exit, which literally was 100 yards from me, and get to a tire place, get both of my back tires replaced, and make it home safely to Atlanta. So I shared that example to share that when you embrace the power of surrender, it gives you a discipline of calmness that helps you to navigate disruptions in a safe way that gets you to a solution. Because the truth is, whether you surrender or not, life is going to happen. The tire going to blow out, the tree is going to fall, the plane's going to be delayed. Those are things that just happen in life. And we don't know what's going to happen and we don't know when, but we do know that we can trust our ability to remain calm and navigate us to the best decision. Worrying about it excessively, cussing, taking it out on other people, or completely succumbing to anxiety, it's not going to change the outcome. When you embrace the magic of surrender, you empower yourself to believe that it is all working together for your good, and it will always work out for your good. Well, that's all I have to say about that. Thank you for joining me for another musing from the mind of Dr. SDB, where I share poignant thoughts that help you live your life in the end. I hope you learned something. I hope you felt something. But most of all, I hope you do something. Fulfillment won't happen because you desire it. Fulfillment will happen because you decide to go get it. Let's get it. This episode was brought to you by Rejuvenate, Radiate, Celebrate You Retreat, taking place November 15th through the 17th, 2024, at the Limelight Inn in Dahlonega, Georgia. Join us for a weekend of transformation, rejuvenation, and empowerment. You can discover yourself, connect with like-minded women, and emerge renewed and inspired. Our thoughtfully curated programming at the Rejuvenate, Radiate, Celebrate You retreat is designed to guide you through a comprehensive journey of transformation, rejuvenation, and self-discovery. You can join us for a harmonious blend of insightful sessions, invigorating activities, and meaningful interactions, all aimed at helping you embrace your fullest potential. If you are ready to join our golden flutter of women committed to being the highest and best version of themselves, please email the team at christopoulos.com with the subject line Golden Flutter, and you will receive an invitation. We hope that you will join this transformative experience to rejuvenate, radiate, celebrate you. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Living Life in the End for the successful and fulfilled woman. Please be sure to let me know what made you feel something, what you learned, and what moved you to action. Please subscribe so you don't miss out on a great conversation. And don't forget to rate and review the podcast and let me know how you are living life in the end. Life is too long to be unfulfilled. Don't keep all this goodness to yourself. Tell someone else to listen for themselves. We should all be fulfilled. Remember, your life is the product of your choices. Choose to commit to bringing the desires of your heart to completion. You don't get what you deserve until you get what you decide. Life is too long to be unfulfilled.